Apparently, Gunnar Hansen went to a local, like a straight up, like old school, like 70s mental ward to do like a study on his character and everything, and like learned the like a certain walk that certain patients had, probably like a Thorazine shuffle mixed with mania,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
um, and then he actually went to a friend who was a pig farmer and would try to imitate pig
Uh,
squeals.
yep.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was him supposed to be him making those pig noises. I'm like looking through the full movie, like where's the pig in the house, right?
Right.
Like thinking that it's stored in the place where he kills people, and I didn't even remember that from the previous times I've not even seen the whole movie back in the past. But like, yeah, I didn't even think of that until later when I was like reading, and I was like, oh shit, that's supposed to be him making those noises. So that's crazy getting into like the psychology of getting into your character.
Yeah. Well, he's not non-verbal fucking force in nature, man.
Right.
It's terrifying, and it's again, it's back to that minimalist idea, right? Like this, like the movie doesn't even have music. I mean, that's like a very well-known thing about this, and why
Yeah.
and it's wildly unsettling and a really weird idea. I guess the movie did have music originally, and
Huh.
Toby Hooper hated it.
Mm.
So, so there's music when she goes to the gas station at
Right.
the like the making barbecue scene, and it's playing like a country western song like on loop. I think it definitely repeats itself,
Yeah.
but
Huh.
that just it's totally adding to the like Texas like backwoodsy
Yeah,
Texas-y
yeah. I think like the
barbecue meat
only
out of people.
time you actually hear like any sort of like auditory like input, it always feels as if though it's coming from a nearby like broken radio or something.
Yep. Yeah, the sound engineer did a good job on it. Even from that camera sound in the beginning, I mean, that scares the shit out of everybody, ain't it?
The
Yeah.
cat thing. It's like a cat camera. I don't know.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Like or like down. It's like down a guitar string. Yeah, like the.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's an interesting noise. But I was talking to Harry a little bit earlier and how good that fucking intro is.
Dude, it's so
Actually,
good.
Yeah, it's my
good. It's so
Yeah.
good, and I fucking didn't even remember. I may have not have even seen the intro before. I just watched it and fucking. I'm like, this is like modern day awesome intro. I'm like, this has been mimicked probably like 6 or 7 times in different movies,
Oh,
and it probably
absolutely.
Poorly too.
exactly and like set
Yeah.
a standard for awesome fucking horror intro, which is that's super impressive for like a 60K budget film from the late 70s.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, man.
I mean, yeah, Jason kind of referenced it. It like makes it real. Like it testifies that this is a thing that happened and is somewhat unexplained. Like it's pretty classic from like Edgar Allan Poe and like old school gothic horror. You have a lot of like we found this fragment of a story in a bottle somewhere from the Antarctic, and like this is a long thing in literature where like you say like, hey, we found this and we can't explain it, but it's real, and so here we
Boom.
go.
Yeah, it's
Kind of
immediately
stuff like that.
scarier. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anything relatable is also scarier, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody
Right.
drives, everybody goes to Texas, everybody does these normal everyday things, and you stumble upon a fucking crazy family every once in a while.
Right. Or you're in one.
Best of it.
Yeah, shit,
Or-
dude. Just go to fucking Walmart right now. You'll run into this like
Well, that's funny because I saw an interview with Toby Hooper.
eyes, like
Toby Hooper said this was inspired by Christmas shopping. Like he was in a
Oh.
store during Christmas season. He looked at a chainsaw and he was like, "I can mow these fuckers down right now in minutes."
Wow.
Yeah. So like the whole idea, he went home and he wrote like the first part of the script.
Could you
It's amazing.
imagine Toby
Wow.
Hooper like going to buy like the family a new TV or whatever, and he's just like sitting in the sports section, just going like,
Staring at the chainsaw.
Yeah,
just like sitting there.
that was
he's
wild.
making the fucking chainsaw noises and shit.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like smearing fucking lipstick on his face like he's Marilyn Manson,
Yeah.
just fucking like leaning way into it.
Silent Night, Deadly Night, fucking just the making of Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. Oh my
That's
god.
fucking great.
All right. So that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's move into our flip side of the same coin, so to speak. What sounds like, and I'm very interested to hear, is not everybody's favorite movie, Insidious. So what's the overall? What's the deal? How does everybody feel about it?
All right, guys, it's getting late. I gotta jump off. No.
I'll say it's shot beautifully. I think the cinematography in it's awesome. That's just James Wan, and I just love his style, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because, and I've said this to Harry before too. I feel like in a lot of the different decades, horror has like a persona throughout the decade. Like you can definitely, if I just showed you two fucking different movies one from the 90s, one from the 70s, and you didn't know, other than like talking about film grain and shit, but you didn't know the era, you could tell which one was which if it was some random horror movie you hadn't seen. Same thing with 80s, early 2000s, late 2000s. And I think where I fall off with some of the movies like Insidious and things, like I said, they're very clean, and that's hard for me to wrap my head around with getting really into liking a movie. But a lot of it's also it's almost like everything's been done, so they try to go different routes to do something different. And sometimes that comes off as forced, or it comes off as not even horror. Sometimes it'll be action, sometimes it'll be sci-fi or drama. And the good things I think about Insidious, it's got a great soundtrack. It's got a lot of good jump scares, either audio jump scares or visual ones. Some of the character like design is pretty good and nasty, and it did set kind of like you said, the Blumhouse stuff. It set kind of like a standard for that. And for movies like that, I can dig pieces out of it that I love, but I don't usually love that whole genre yet. Or I really have to find one that I love. Actually, Conjuring was pretty good. I really liked Conjuring, and that's probably because it got a little bit grittier. It's like an older house, you know. I was also, it's weird too, because the thing I just said also is sort of false for the late 2000s, where I was comparing the movies that came out around the time of Texas Chainsaw, and like we said, like Omen, Jaws, fucking everything's kind of like very similar, and you've got this like personified thing people are going for, this sort of, they all shoot the same, they've got the same sort of film grain or color scheme or soundtrack, where in fucking 2000, I mean, it's all over the fucking place. Like fucking Cabin in the Woods is 2011. The Thing fucking prequel 2011. You got The Quarantine and whatchamacallit, Harry. What is it? What's the other? VHS coming out. You've got so many different types of movies. The fucking Underworld movies are coming out, so that looks like a whole different kind of movie, right? And of course, there's different studios and different budgets, but it's weird. Like that rule of a personification of movies in one genre has totally dissolved, but you will see pockets of it. So, like you said, the Blumhouse movies, they're sort of pocketed together.
Well, I see Insidious as being like this little seed, right? And I get what you're saying. Definitely, like there isn't like this overall voice or like a representative for the like post 2010 kind of era. But what I see in Insidious, and why I didn't pick The Conjuring, is because of Insidious being earlier. I feel like the Conjuring movies are where we are in horror right now. I think, other than Ari Aster, you don't have anything in the mainstream that's like consistent. I think they're being beat to death at this point in 2020. But I mean, it is what it is. Also, James Wan and all those guys don't even have anything really to do with the more modern film, like The Nun and all that stuff. But Insidious is definitely like that first entry into this like haunted house, and I think it actually does bring it back into like the Amityville horrors, the Omens, and that kind of stuff, where you do have this constant thread of like uh, the going back to what Harry was saying, the family dynamic in a haunted house, or is it a possession movie, and you don't really know which one you're dealing with. In both The Conjuring and Insidious, which is interesting in almost an Evil Dead way, where it's like they got a redo and they tightened the screws on it and really made a more superior entry into that genre, or that like subgenre, with Hereditary, or not Hereditary, The Conjuring versus Insidious. Like Insidious feels like a what the fuck, let's try it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they made a sequel, which is literally the same story, just almost shot from a different angle. Like, hey, maybe we kind of didn't explain this well enough, which I didn't think was the best idea. But yeah, that's just my explanation for picking Insidious.
Got the further right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took it with me.
Yeah. But, I feel like it just has kind of been that one thing that continues on out of that 2010 to 2020 era of horror. It's these guys. It's James Wan and Lee. They made Saw, that fizzled out. Underworld was an answer to all of your vampire action, type stuff like Blade. You have kind of these stumble steps where you do have a bunch of anthologies coming out. What did Trick or Treat come out right around then too? Probably, right?
Shit, 5, I think.
2000 something.
Yeah, so 2007 to 2010, you got VHS. So like there's always going to be those weird, awkward growing pains where there isn't a voice. But I feel like Insidious was kind of that film that came out, everybody was like, oh shit, you can make a ton of money on it, and that's always what matters, right? Because everybody went to see it, and then so on and so forth. You have this entire new franchise. I mean, fucking people are doing pictures of Jason, Freddy, and the Nun, or Jason, Freddy, and Annabelle at this point, because it's just so familiar, and it transcends into the generation below, or not, I guess not below ours, but younger than us. They're growing up with the Insidious and the Conjurings as their, oh yeah, I've seen all the Annabelle movies, I know all about them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, from bringing it forward. Same, like the same game, different year. Like
nobody can see this, but right now Bron has the lipstick monster demon guy behind Patrick Wilson just opening his mouth on loop. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know the demon is actually called the lipstick demon?
No,
I did not know that.
He's actually, all the demons in the James Wan franchise are actually all black. They're all completely black. And that this demon specifically is the lipstick demon because mothers wear lipstick, and it's trying to entice children, but it for some reason doesn't know how to put on lipstick, that it wants to look like Darth Maul.
Yep. It does look like Darth Maul, totally.
It's actually played by the composer. That's the composer of the movies actually playing the character.
Oh, no shit. Really? He's the lipstick demon?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, Joseph Bashara, yep.
I did not know
that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah, if you actually pay attention through the movie, like his face is actually different, like throughout the film, the few times that they see it, because he's just scribbling fucking lipstick all over his face. Apparently like Toby Hooper while he's Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool, man.
Oh, that's awesome. That's interesting, Billy. So what, other than the specific people, what pieces of this genre do you think are echoing forward?
The Conjuring is the strongest entries, I think. The Insidious movies kind of lost their way. They kind of jumped the shark after the second one. The third one's okay, but I really feel like without Insidious, you wouldn't have a Conjuring, and those movies are just constantly like weaving in and out of each other. They're doing prequels, they're doing sequels. They're just kind of going back to that like I guess you see it more in the '80s where you're building a franchise, and I just see it's just something like tangible. You can just go like Casey and I actually just did it. We just watched all of the Conjuring series in order, but like in their not in their release date, but like chronologically in the story.
Chronological order.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which is fun to do. Like
It
whether
really
all
is.
the movies are fucking super solid, there's like 10 of them at this point. With the Annabelle series, there's La Llorona. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there's
Did you like it, by the way?
I didn't mind it, man. I actually really expected to hate The Nun. I thought The Nun was going to be awful with everybody talking about it, and other than it being like, it felt like really kind of like film student trying to make a James Wan movie. I really didn't mind the story all that much. I thought it was also interesting that the woman that I can never pronounce her name that plays what's her name there? Lorraine. Her actual sister, the chick from American Horror Story, plays the like ancestor of her in The Nun.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why they look so much alike. I don't know if you guys watched it, but
I didn't see The Nun or most of
didn't see
the
The Nun.
Annabelle movies. Yeah, I've seen like half of one Annabelle movie.
yeah, and it's cool, man. It leans very hard on like actual events. They talk about Amityville, they talk about the Manson murders, they talk about
The
how
Enfield haunting.
yeah. They weave in and out of reality and stuff, which I think is kind of cool. And just as a true crime nerd myself, it's fun to be like, holy shit, they actually did their research on some of this stuff.
Yep.
Ed and Lorraine, whether you want to contribute to them making money, a lot of people think that they're scam artists and that they don't deserve the success that they have, especially with getting money from the Conjuring movies.
Right.
That's a whole separate discussion that I don't care to have, but yeah, I really feel like they've just kind of built their own thing. I think James Wan and Lee Manel, other than Saw, really kind of built this other world for people to enjoy. And just like any of these other franchises, I just like watching all of them and getting into them. I'll sit and watch all the fucking Puppet Masters from start to finish. And I totally love it.
Yep.
I guess it's just like, I don't know, I can go to a museum and see a Picasso and see a Pollock and see a Bacon painting, and like they're all so different, but it doesn't change the fact that I just appreciate somebody creating something while using paint. It's like, I just like movies. I agree with the Stephen King story, or the quote from him saying that even the worst horror movie I ever saw was still a great movie.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep.
So I'm a bad judge. I'll fucking watch all this shit. I don't care if it makes sense, if it's good, if it's bad, whatever.
That doesn't make you a bad judge. Yeah, we've all got some movie that's a piece of shit that we love because it's a great character, somebody that we identify with, right?
Yeah.
Or some shitty sequel like Jesus. I love the fucking Ghoulies movies. They're garbage.
Yeah.
They're like some of my favorite fucking movies. And whether that could be because they're kind of like funny or because
childhood memories, there's something endearing about that,
Yeah, the nostalgia factor and the fact that that shit was played on HBO like 50 times a day, so I had to see it. So I probably ended up I was forced to like it. But at that time in my life, I was impressionable, and
well, that's the thing. You watch it with a child mind, and you don't notice things you notice when you're an adult. You know what I mean?
Yo, that actually happened to me with Halloween 3, which is awesome because I hated that movie for years, forever, and I probably rewatched it 2 years ago. I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, dude, it's a yearly staple for me.
It's amazing. It touches on so much like the history of Halloween and Samhain and all this other shit. And there's so many weird elements in it that are just fucking strange that maybe shouldn't be in the same movie, but it's great that they are.
For sure.
Absolutely a good example of that. Something that I thought was trash when I was young. And
Same here.
Super appreciate as an adult.
And honestly, I think the only reason we thought that was trash is because it was a Halloween movie without Michael Myers. You know what I mean? We thought we were getting robbed.
Yeah,
that swayed us as children. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So here's an idea. do you think because Insidious came out when you were, older and looking at it without a child's mind, and kind of applying what you know about film and about other horror movies and the respect you have for these other things that you did see when you were a child might have had an effect on like the viewing experience? Like if you were 12 and you weren't supposed to stay up late and you watched Insidious now, do you think you would appreciate it more?
I'm sure I would have. I'll let everybody else answer before I dig into that.
So I was gonna say that if I were 12 watching Insidious now, I would probably understand that it's not super great as a horror movie.
No. But you know what I'm saying.
It's okay.
Like
I would probably
without
think that it's a horror movie for 10-year-olds maybe, and I'm a 12-year-old, so I'm too cool for this. Like, Insidious is not particularly scary. For me, a lot of Insidious' story is what we're talking about. We're not really talking about the movie. We're talking about like when it came out and our reception of it. Because for me, a lot of Insidious is that it came out after like a long dead time where there wasn't really horror, not really.
right.
And it led into what would turn out to be like kind of really disappointing horror in a way, like the Conjureverse, which I think is the official name of this thing.
Oh, okay.
So the Conjureverse is its thing, and I've seen I haven't seen the second Annabelle, and I haven't seen the Nun. That's the only ones. I've seen all the others, and it's fine. It's fine. I remember when Sinister came out, and I was really excited for Sinister because it was R.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
'Cause it
Well,
was
the
R.
first Sinister,
So,
man,
like,
and actually almost brought that up about Sinister because it kind of feels the same as these movies and that the like troubled dad and the
Oh, yeah.
the dark house and like all that stuff. And dude, Sinister had
Sleepwalking.
all the boxes checked for me until like the last 5 minutes.
I gotta rewatch that, man.
I hate when that happens.
Dude, I was so upset. I was so fucking upset. I actually rewatched it because I refused for a long time,
Yeah.
and Casey wanted to watch it, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go through this," and I relived it, man. I was like, maybe I was being too hard on this. This movie's fucking awesome. I was like, Ethan Hawke killing it. This movie's dark as shit. It's super creepy. The fucking found footage elements were super dope, and then I was like, God damn the fucking hush shit. Oh, it made me upset. Fucking shh! Don't tell I'm a spooky kid.
Seriously.
Fuck you, Be Ghoul. Fuck you.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
Anyway, so like Insidious drops into that, and so like it was noteworthy because like there wasn't really other stuff. So I will point out, 2009 is one of my favorite years of horror. Like if I had to pick a single year, 2009 has a lot of really okay horror movies came out. Like I'm not saying they're great.
Yeah, let me
But
see,
You got a
man.
list? Yeah, let's get a
Look
list.
at
I
the
want to
list.
hear it.
You got Human Centipede, you got Orphan, you got Jennifer's Body, The Collector, Drag Me to Hell. A lot of there was a lot of like hauntings, spookies, possession movies. Fucking Friday 13th remake, Dead Snow,
Zombieland.
2, Zombieland,
Slice, Pandorum, like the remake of Last House on the Left, which actually was pretty awesome the one time I saw it, and I'll never see it again. Antichrist is one of the movies that actually fucked me up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like
Zombies,
Collector is fine.
Yep.
Final Destination, the remake. So like 2009 had a lot of remakes and things, but I kind of like remakes. So 2009 was like a cool year after like a lot of years of not anything. I once did a little bit of like research where I tracked how many horror movies came out every year from like 2000 until I did this in like I think I checked in 2019 and I backed it out to like the 90s, and at the end of a decade there are so many horror movies in the 90s, like horror and sci-fi, and then they fall off. Like the millennium is this massive upsurge in like paranoia and fear that the family's going to fall apart, that like who we are is going to be totally changed. Space is about genetically organized or engineering a creature, right, that replaces humans and all this kind of stuff, and then it like goes away. And so Insidious falls in like the falling off, which is the like let's return to the family maybe, or something like that. So Insidious is in this like gray area, and then after Insidious, we kind of like built back up. Like Conjuring, the Conjuring series, spoiler, is about the power of love. Like that's how they end, right? They end with
Yeah.
her like talking to the kids again, and it all goes away. It all goes away. And the power of love will see us through, and that's cool. That's really nice. But like, it's not convincing to me. So like, we have these like peaks, and so for me, Insidious and the Conjuring verse fall into a valley of like of good production values, pretty, the film technique that happens sometime in like the mid 2000s, which is the like, look at the thing, look at the thing that distracts you, look back at the thing, it's gone, and then a jump scare. And so Insidious doesn't do the third thing, but we see the same film technique. Look at the thing, distraction, the thing's gone, and like we do this over and over. So like, it's really familiar to do these kind of beats, but it's kind of weird for me because like Texas Chainsaw is like using different like camera shots to show speed and terror, and like Leatherface's like total control run as he's chasing her, and her like getting in the brambles, and they do it through camera technique. And Insidious uses camera technique to like pull us into the drama. Like, we're Renee, the mom.
Right.
She looks behind the door. The camera looks behind the door. Like, we're her, right? And we're so like in her position all the time. And I get it, like it's almost like Paranormal Activity to me. It's almost like a documentary, but the quality is much nicer, and the story is a little more coherent. And we have monsters and stuff like that. So like, Insidious for me is this kind of like weird place where they're creating their own beats. And like, Billy, you're talking about, like, you can get wrapped up in them, like watch all 10 movies in a row, and there is this sort of like structure to them, which is like satisfying. But for me, like, we were just coming off of like a time when there was no structure. Horror movies sucked. I think they were remakes or something. It was like we had Saw. Oh, and like Hostel and all this stuff. We were going through
torture porn phase. Yeah.
Yeah, of the 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
growing pains.
Yeah. So it's hard to say what a little me would think, because like Insidious feels a little bit like a horror movie for people who don't. They didn't watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cool.
James Wan is totally open with that. He straight up says he likes making like overproduced movies. Like, that's his fucking thing. Like, he uses it as like an aesthetic. And it's really interesting that you said that like the 1, 2, 3 count of the jump scare formula, where like you see the thing, you look away, you look back, jump scare. He actually said straight up in the making of this movie that he didn't want to use jump scares. So not only did he like actively approach that, but maybe in a pretty clunky way, where instead of coming up with an alternative, he just cut out part 3. He just moved step 3 from the formula.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's only like one. There's like the bride or somebody passes by when they're in the further or whatever. And that's like there's like strings, and it got me, but it's because we're not used to it in this film, because it doesn't work out. We don't get the dump. But, yeah.
So I think how I feel about some of this is in the late 2000s that we're in now, the genre of horror, which is not necessarily personified, it's washed out. So as I said, there's pockets, and this is one of them, where you don't have like an overall feel or overall sense of like the whole genre. So what you run into is like you ran into the late 90s. A lot of horror is actually action movies or drama movies. There's horror elements, there's a couple gore or scary jump scenes or whatever, but usually it's more like it's going with like whatever sells that era. Action movies sell late 90s, or make it an action. And really everything's been done. Like, nobody really has anywhere to go. So the only two kind of genres I think you're seeing right now is like you're saying, Billy, is this one and remakes.